everyone, and thanks for being with me. I'm going to talk today about the ignorance of the media. And ignorance, I mean, is you have one set of arguments on one side about a particular politician. In this case, it's Sky News here in Australia reporting on Kamala Harris's efforts, her conversations, her word salad, as they put it. And on the other hand, you have a real issue that the United States is grappling with in relation to Donald Trump at the moment. And it fascinates me how ignorant the right-wing media here is in Australia in reporting these other events, these other incidences, which would make anybody ineligible in this particular country to even run for prime ministership, let alone for president of the United States. So this is a continuing issue that bewilders me, to put it mildly. I don't understand why you can say one thing at one level and completely ignore what's happening at another. And so I'm going to play a little bit of Sky News rambling about Kamala Harris and her word salad, as they put it. It really fascinates me that when Harris talks about things at a more emotional, intellectual level and not necessarily attacking anybody, it's seen as a word salad. It's simply a reasonable explanation for her view on a certain subject, such as democracy in the United States. So the right-wing media, though, tend to think of this as her just rambling about things, because when you're not insulting somebody, apparently, according to the media, when you're not insulting somebody, you're doing a poor job. You could be doing better. So here's Kamala Harris having that conversation according to the word salad as defined by Sky News.
Kamala Harris is struggling. The Democratic candidate is limping her way to the finish line, complete with daily stumbles, mumbles, and word salads. Kamala Harris has served up a banquet of word salads in the past few days that has
So it fascinates me that their objection primarily is about this notion around word salad. And a word salad for them is language which they disagree with, not that she's citing things that are unrealistic or talking about things that people don't want to talk about. It's just that they don't seem to have the intellectual capacity to understand that people can talk in a reasonable way about issues that matter to the community.
Everyone, including her own campaign, very frightened. Kamala's most recent NBC sit-down with journalist Hallie Jackson should have been an easy win. Instead, she served up a cringe word salad, repeating bizarre Democrat talking points.
I think part of what is important in this election is really not only turning the page, but closing the page and the chapter on an era that suggests that Americans are divided.
Kamala.
Now, I want someone to explain to me where the word salad was in any of that. She's simply saying, and she said it 1,000 times before, that we want to move on beyond Trump. We want to turn that page of disruption, of attacking everybody. We just want to get on with governing, which is really what it's all about. But Sky News cannot accept that. They cannot. But on the other hand, there is this other issue which has presented itself, which is of considerable concern. And that is that Trump has made statements in the past about the military, about his desire to be a dictator, which simply gets ignored by Sky News here in Australia and clearly by Fox News, I would imagine, in the United States. I'm just reporting on what's happening here in Australia and how the impression is to our right wing about this notion that there's this word salad, which is just bizarre, crazy, untrue. But this is the focus on the right wing here in Australia in relation to this election. But then there are other issues such as this one. Well, let's talk about this and let me know what you think on this one in particular.
I want to bring in Paul Reichhoff, the founder and CEO of Independent Veterans of America and host of the Independent Americans podcast. And Paul, first of all, thank you for being here. And I want to play some more about what John Kelly says. In this case, it's about Donald Trump's feelings as he knows them toward veterans. Take a listen.
Does he have disdain for the disabled?
Well, certainly his not wanting to be seen with amputees that lost their limbs in defense of this country, fighting for every American, to him included, to protect them, that didn't want to be seen with them. That's an interesting perspective for the commander-in-chief to have.
Why didn't you want to be seen with them?
He would just say, look, it doesn't look good for me.
And to repeat what Peter pointed out, this is a 4-star general who is saying this. There are voters, and we know this because we've talked to them, who just see this as more of the same, or maybe he doesn't really mean it, right? What do you hear when you hear that?
I hear a 4-star general who lost his son to a landmine in Afghanistan. His son died in service of this country. So when he thinks about making a decision to go public and have his voice in the record so the whole world can hear, I think it may be John Kelly, the father, stepping out of the role as 4-star general and making sure that the country understands how high the stakes are. And we can't ever normalize any of this because the world is watching and our enemies are watching. When they see a headline like Trump praises Hitler, Trump attacks wounded veterans, Trump fights with Arlington Cemetery, our enemies are celebrating. This is a good news day for Vladimir Putin, who wants to see our country ripped apart, who wants to see the former commander-in-chief attack people in his own country. This is a field day for our enemies.
So explain to me, somebody, why the media aren't talking about that. Why isn't the media talking about Donald, that is the right-wing media, talking about Donald Trump's lengthy explanation of a famous golfer who clearly was, according to Trump, well endowed? Why don't we hear more of the criticism of Trump's ramblings on his when he's giving a lengthy 1.5, 2-hour speech? Why don't we hear more about him swaying and dancing because he's just given up on whatever was happening at the time? Or some of the bizarre answers he's given in relation to tariffs and other things. So why isn't it that we're hearing those things? Why isn't it that the people aren't reporting those things? Because if it was Biden or Harris saying those bizarre things, it would be reported. And it would be all over the news, both left and right. But for some reason, the right have to find a way to protect Trump. And they work very, very hard at that. And particularly this issue around Trump wanting to admire or admiring Hitler for the things that Hitler did, for Christ's sake, who possibly in their right mind can ever validate anything that Hitler did. Well, clearly Trump can, because Trump wants to be like Hitler. He wants generals, he wants the military to do the things that he wants them to do, including attacking their own citizens when the citizens do things that he disagrees with, such as having rallies or protests against Trump. So this is who he is, and we need to accept that this is who he is. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Is the media just too one-sided? Now, you could argue that the left is too one-sided, and I wouldn't disagree with that argument one iota. But on the other hand, I think one could also argue that the right wing are cutting out many of the things. You know, the reality is that if I want to know what Trump is like, I watch Trump rallies, which I do. And the reporting on Trump rallies is spot on. He's a clown. He rambles, he rants, he tells stories for 20 minutes. They've got nothing to do with anything really. He doesn't talk about policy one iota. He just name calls people. It's generally a disgrace. It's a disgrace. But that's who he is. And in 14 days' time, we're going to find out whether the American people think he's worth re-electing or not. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. In the meantime, take care, look after yourselves, and more importantly, be safe.